Now here's an unpopular opinion that's surely gonna get me canceled in the car community. Well, here's the thing. Cars today are so much better than they were generations ago. I mean, if you love those old cars, let me tell you what, they have less horsepower than the ones that we have right now. Now we're entering an age where we're about to enter the next phase of car development, and I think this car right here will usher that in for us. What's going on, guys? Roy Robles here for Zigwheels.Ph, and yes, I'm here to welcome you to the future with our review of the Nissan Kicks e-Power. All right, so I'm gonna start off by saying that I'm not gonna focus too much on the fuel economy and how amazing this is when it comes to exactly that. I mean, a lot of guys, a lot of channels out there have already focused on that too much. So I'm gonna talk about how good this is as a car and how it performs. And we're gonna put our rose-colored glasses out of the way. So for starters, we're gonna start with the exterior look. The Nissan Kicks e-Power features this huge V-Motion grille right here that's decked in piano black. You got this Nissan badge up front. It's the new Nissan badge. If you notice, it has that glass cover on it. The reason why it has that glass cover is because it hides most of the sensors underneath that, and that's where they neatly tuck that in. So that's why it's glass. Now you got your DRLs right here, your LED headlamps, and this is the top of the line VL variant. So it's got those fog lamps as well. That's housed in this piano black trim as well. Now about the design of the headlamps, they kind of protrude on top right here. They're integrated into the front fender this way, and I have a little bit more reservations when it comes to that part, but when you look at it from this particular angle, it kind of works. But again, integrating it into the front fender, it's kind of a different kind of approach for me, and it might take some getting used to. They're actually marketing this as a subcompact crossover SUV, but as you can see, the hood is kind of low. The ride's kind of lower to the ground than I would usually like in my crossover SUVs, but it is what it is, and it's a nice design overall. Now, before we move on to the side profile, this is one of the more important parts of the Nissan Kicks e-Power, what's under the hood. So we're gonna lift it up, and I'll show you a couple of things then. All right, so popping the hood, you would definitely find this. So this is the HR12DE engine, but instead of having this engine propelling the car forward, it's not attached to any axles or whatever. It's simply there to charge this. This is the star of the show. That's the electric motor. That's the Nissan e-Power electric motor, and that's what propels the car forward. So this is called e-Power. It's not your regular hybrid. Nissan actually doesn't want to call this an EV or a hybrid. They're calling this e-Power, but it is what it is. It definitely is a series hybrid. So the engine then in turn charges the electric motor, and the electric motor is what pushes the car forward. So that's where you go. So what that feels like is that you're driving an electric vehicle, much like a Tesla or much like any EV out there, full EV. But instead of having to worry about having range anxiety, you don't have to plug this in because it's this engine that charges the batteries of that motor. The batteries, by the way, are tucked underneath the front seats, so you'll have a little less space inside, but as you will see later on, it's more than enough even for me. So this is definitely the start of the show. I just want to show this to you guys. We'll be talking more about the drive later on. So let's talk more about the exterior. Now, heading over to the side profile of the Nissan Kicks e-Power, this is definitely where you'd see that this is a crossover SUV because of those black plastic claddings. Those wheels, those are 17-inch alloy wheels wrapped in 205/55 R17 tires. Those are eco tires, so those are really hard and thin tires, so they can actually get that good fuel economy rating. You've got your roof rails up top. You got your turn signals right here on the side mirror, as well as a camera, because this does have Nissan Intelligent Mobility, and this is a 360-degree camera right there. So it's also got a floating roof design here, but you wouldn't notice that because this is a two-tone design car. And yeah, it's not that high actually, but it's higher than most sedans out there. They're actually all sedans out there. So nothing much to talk about the side profile right here. It's nice, it's boxy, definitely fits the bill of a crossover SUV. So let's head over to the rear and I'll show you even more stuff that I think is really cool. Now out here in the rear, it's definitely one of the more interesting design features of the Nissan Kicks e-Power, because you got these LED tail lamps as well as this this bar that runs across the entire width of the vehicle. Now, you would think that this is actually a light bar, but no, it's just there for continuity's sake. I mean, if they wanted to go for the Tron look, they could have done that by adding that light bar, but instead they went the more traditional route. The Nissan badge is still very prominent here in the back, but there's no glass covering to it because there are no sensors right there. You do have the backup camera underneath as well as parking sensors, which I think is pretty smart because they put some sort of plastic trim to hide those dots, those parking sensors, instead of having to put those ugly parking sensors on the paint, which is definitely a smart feature if you ask me. Now up top you have this little hint of a spoiler, but that's not a spoiler, that's just integrated into the whole body design. You got a shark's fin antenna there as well. You got the Kicks logo, you got the e-Power badge here again, and opening up the hatch gives you access to all this space. You do have a lot of space for all your stuff in here, even more so than larger crossover SUVs. Plus you get a tonneau cover to hide it from prying eyes. And if you need even more space, you can fold those seats down. They're not gonna fold flat, by the way, but at least you'll have more space. By the way, no power tailgate, which is fine. So let's take a look at the inside and see what's what. All right, so we're inside the Nissan Kicks e-Power. So this is actually my first time driving this, and I gotta say I'm pretty impressed, especially for the price point. More on that later on. It's definitely a Nissan right here. It reminds me a lot of their smaller offerings like the Almera, especially the steering wheel here. It's leather wrapped, plus it's D-shaped as well, giving it a more sporty appeal as well. Here's one thing that I find kind of weird about the Nissan Kicks e-Power. I think it's a little bit more too practical because the two cup holders right here on the center console, it's kind of too large. I got a pretty large can right here, and it doesn't hold it quite as well as I wanted it to. Probably this definitely fits, a 1 liter bottle will definitely fit better here. But if I want to put a small cup of coffee or this energy drink, it's gonna slosh around everywhere, which is kind of a concern for me. So yeah, I think it's a little bit too practical. I know I've been complaining a lot about cup holders being too small. In this case, it's actually too big. So up top, you got your touchscreen infotainment system that thankfully has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. At the bottom, you find your automatic climate control. It's not dual zone because you definitely don't need that in this small subcompact SUV. I like how the entire dashboard is sculpted, by the way. Although you do have hard plastics there, the middle of the dashboard has this leather material to it, complete with the stitching. It's kind of nice. The seats though are fairly comfortable. I'm not sure if these are zero gravity seats. They're not marketing it as such, but it certainly feels similar to what Nissan's offering when those seats. These are nice. They're very supportive actually. They're nicely bolstered. They're not too soft. They're not too hard. They're just right. They got this nice grain material on the leather, which mimics real leather really well, I gotta say. And this certainly will last. This is one interesting dealie for me here. The center console, it is decked in piano black. It's all scratched up. Yeah, you know how much I don't like piano black. So, but it's got that all around. You got your start-stop button. It's right here. It's located right next to the shifter. But the thing is, the parking brake is on top. So if you need to reach it, it's kind of a bit of a stretch. A little bit more effort to do that instead of having it right here, which is more intuitive. The shifter is kind of unique in a way. It's one of those shift by wire mechanisms. Instead of having the shifter all the way up here, it does help by saving you a little bit more space by putting it down there. So that's pretty much everything I can say about the front end, but I do want to check out the second row seats because people who are in the market for the Nissan Kicks e-Power are looking at it as a family car. So let's see how that works out, and see you right there. All right, so right here on the second row seats, there's a decent amount of space. Again, this Nissan Kicks e-Power is deceptively spacious, especially when you're looking at it from the outside. But once you're inside though, it's a pretty decent amount of space. But if you want to fit 3 of myself here in the back, that's a no-go. So if you want to imagine how that looks like, I got my director Ash right here. He's taller than me. He's more than 6 feet tall, but he's got his knees mashed up against the front passenger seat. And also that's because it's Canada. Grant, my cameraman right here, he has his seat reclined all the way back. In a pinch, you can put 3 people here, but that is not advisable. You got 2 USB ports right here. You also have two USB ports up front. One is USB-C, which is nice. Room for your feet is pretty constrained because there's a hump right there in front of the front passengers because of the battery. The battery is actually located right there on the front row. So again, just to wrap it up, there's not much you can say about the rear. The seats are comfortable. Unfortunately, you can't recline them. That's as far as they would go. But they're fairly comfortable, fairly supportive, and good enough for long drives, even for me. So yeah, that's everything I can say about the second row seat. But what I'm most excited about is the drive. So let's head on out and check it out. All right, so we're behind the wheel of the Nissan Kicks e-Power. All right, so first things first, it has 134 horsepower and 280 Newton meters of torque coming from that electric motor. So with that, you get the speed that you want from your vehicle, no problem. The Nissan Kicks just keeps on going until it reaches its theoretical top speed, and I don't want to know what it is because it's just so much fun. All right, so let's talk about the suspension. Well, the suspension is pretty basic. It's pretty run-of-the-mill. You've got your McPherson struts up front right there and a torsion bar right there in the rear with stabilizers. It's pretty stiff. It's pretty sporty per se, but it definitely misses the mark when it comes to trying to carve some canyons. You still feel some body roll. I would have to put most of the blame with the tires. Those are eco-saving tires, so those are economic tires, so the rubber is pretty hard. It's 205s, so I'm talking about the millimeter, the width of the track of the particular tire. So in this case, 205s, if you look at it from behind or up front, it's pretty thin. The thing about having thinner, harder tires is that you get great fuel economy. So the Nissan Kicks e-Power is more attuned to being an economical car with having great fuel economy. So if they want to market this as being such, they have to put those thinner tires. But because it has thinner tires, it misses the mark with being in the comfort section. So you might want to switch that up, or you want to change it to thicker tires. But as it stands right now, it's fairly rough inside. But one thing about NVH though, it's pretty isolated inside, if you know what I mean. But most of that is because you don't hear any noise coming from the engine. This thing is so quiet, in fact, that the Nissan Kicks e-Power needs some sort of speaker system outside to warn pedestrians that there's a car close by. So if you listen closely, while this thing is on idle, you'd hear some sort of angelic sound on the front end, like. Then when you hit reverse, it's gonna give a faint sound, a faint beeping sound on the outside. It's not too annoying. You even barely know it's there, but at least it alerts whoever is outside that a car is backing up. Outside noise, it's pretty isolated. Motorcycles are passing by, and you can barely hear them inside. So good job on Nissan on that one. They've always been great when it comes to isolating outside noise, and this is of no exception. Now, if only they can do something about the harshness part. There's no engine harshness. Don't get me wrong, there's no engine harshness. But again, because of those tires, there's a lot of road noise and it's pretty stiff inside. So let's talk about the most important part that we have right here. Let's talk about fuel economy. So in the city, with our horrible traffic, early this morning, my average speed to our destination was around 7 to 8 kilometers per hour. It was that horrible, but I was pleasantly surprised. I was able to get 14 kilometers per liter. And that is just insane. So when I was able to bring it out on the highway, when the road started opening up, I was getting around 21 kilometers per liter on the highway. That's just crazy. I mean, yeah, you can definitely get that kind of fuel economy probably on smaller cars if you drive really gingerly, but I wasn't even trying. I was in sport mode the entire time. Safety features. You can't not talk about Nissan Intelligent Mobility if you're not talking about safety features with Nissan. So in this case, the safety features that we have right here is the 360-degree camera, or what they call surround view. It even has motion detectors to make sure that something's moving outside so you don't hit on anything. Sure, you got 360-degree cameras on a lower variant, but it doesn't have those motion detectors, so just make sure that everything's pretty safer. It also has hill start assist, it's got traction control, you even have forward collision warning and emergency braking to make sure that, of course, you're safe. So unfortunately, it doesn't have other active driving assist systems like lane keep assist or adaptive cruise control, but again, this is more of like a city dweller. So even though it doesn't have any of those active driver assist systems, this is more of a city car, so you'd be taking this out of town every once in a while, so it's fine. At least you've got cruise control, so at least we got something. Pricing for the Nissan Kicks e-Power starts at 1,209,000 pesos. Now that's for the entry-level model. You won't have fog lamps with that, and you won't have much of Nissan Intelligent Mobility as well. Now you got the mid-range variant, you got that available too, but this thing that we're testing right now is the top-of-the-line VL, and this is available at 1,509,000 pesos. And that's not much money, if you ask me, especially for a subcompact SUV. If you compare this with the rest of its rivals, that's pretty much the same price it is in as well. In this case, you get advanced technologies, which you can't find on any other car except this one. So you got to ask yourself, if you're in the market for a subcompact SUV and you're willing to jump the fray into the EV craze, and of course get the benefits of having an EV, like for example, there's the VIDA law, where if you have an EV vehicle like this one, you're going to be exempt from number coding. So that's definitely a perk. So again, just my final thoughts. The reason why I said that this car is definitely the future, it's like a next generation kind of vehicle. The way that you drive a regular car as you growing up as a kid, you can probably just forget about that, because trust me on this one, most cars moving forward will be adopting this kind of technology, hybrid technology, and EVs are definitely going to be the future. So some people might be apprehensive to getting EVs. They will definitely get hybrids, and the fuel economy you get out of this is so stellar that you'd be asking yourself, why would you even consider an internal combustion engine right now when this can offer so much? This is definitely something else, some next gen stuff right here. So yeah, if this is just right for you, go ahead, head on over to the nearest Nissan dealership or visit the Zigwheels Philippines website and you can find the best deals on this car. There's a banner ad right there for the Nissan Kicks. Again, this is one of, this is highly recommended. This might even be my next car. Maybe, who knows?
That's my review of the Nissan Kicks e-Power. Now, before I give you my final thoughts about this, here are a couple of things that I don't like about it and a couple of things that I absolutely love. Now, the first thing I don't like about the Nissan Kicks e-Power is the exterior size. I mean, it doesn't really give you that gravitas of actually driving or coming in as a guy driving an SUV or a crossover SUV at that. It's actually smaller than most of its competitors, and I think that's the first thing that I don't like about it. The second thing I don't like about the Nissan Kicks e-Power is the interior amenities. Sure, it's got great seats, but it's got hard plastics everywhere. You can definitely see where Nissan cut a few corners just to make sure that they reach that price point. The third thing I don't like about the Nissan Kicks e-Power is the drive, really. I mean, not how the engine works and pushes forward, I love that, but those wheels, I think it has to do with those tires. Those hard rolling tires are definitely something that I would definitely replace, but Nissan needs to put those tires in order to reach that stellar fuel economy. Now, with those things out of the way, here are 3 things I love about the Nissan Kicks e-Power. The first thing I love about it is the engine and the powertrain. I mean, it's definitely not something that you usually see out on the road. It's an electric motor. It's an EV that's charged by the gasoline engine. And because of that, it removes all traces of range anxiety. Also, it's pretty fast and pretty quick, especially out on the road.
Second thing I love about the Nissan Kicks e-Power is the interior space. It's deceptively spacious inside despite its diminutive exterior. I mean, it's got a lot of space for myself, the passenger, and a lot of the cargo space as well. It's definitely one practical crossover SUV. And the third and final thing I love about this is the way it changes the game when it comes to cars in general. I mean, sure, you can go ahead and buy those EVs out there, those really advanced and really cool EVs, but having to charge them every night or having to worry about your destination having some sort of charger might not be everyone's cup of tea. But thanks to the Nissan Kicks e-Power, with that e-Power technology, you can definitely ease your way into that kind of technology. So what this car represents for me is my third thing that I love about it. So overall, the Nissan Kicks e-Power certainly delivers, especially when it comes to that price point, but I want to know what you think. Drop me a comment in the comment section down below and write me about your opinions. Of course, if you love it or hate it, it really matters to me a lot, and I'll be making sure to reply to all of those comments as much as I can. Now, if you love this video, leave us a like and subscribe to our channel and hit that notification icon so you wouldn't miss any of our videos. The future's definitely bright, and thank you so much for watching. And this is Roy Robles from Zigwheels.Ph. I'll see you guys next time.